one of the first things that jumped to mind was this idea of like backdoor references when we're later in the interview process with a couple of candidates. This is like a bit of a, opinionated subject. Some people hate backdoor because it's like incredibly biased, but some people love it and swear by it. I had Chris Golek, the former founder and CEO of Demandbase, on the show, and he's hired like 1,000+ people in his career. And I asked him this question, like, what's the one thing you could recommend to people to avoid making hiring mistakes? And that was his number one recommendation, like doing backdoor references when you're at the later stages with one or two candidates. Reach out to your VC network or like friends of friends who have worked or maybe, worked in the same company as that person, knowing that maybe their experience is highly biased and it's not fully representative of what that person might be offering. If there's like similar stories from person to person about this individual who portrayed themselves really well in the interview process, there's something there to unpack as like yellow flags at the very least. How do you think that applies to Martech? Because I think it's easier said than done to find people in a similar company as yours with similar use cases who have also used that tool, because there's so many tools that do very similar things. What are your thoughts on like backdoor references for Martech?
Yeah, I love that question. And I think it's so interesting that, that was one of the top recommendations. Because I do agree with it somewhat, although I haven't put it to practice in my own recruitment efforts as much as, maybe it would have been valuable. When it happens organically, where you kind of like naturally know someone and it just comes up that, oh, yes, I'm actually talking to this person, I'm interviewing them for a role, and then you kind of like get the real gist. That is truthfully like where you really get to understand how this person operates, what their true weaknesses are, not what their like interview answer weaknesses are. And you really get to the nitty gritty of like, how are they going to operate when things get chaotic and messy, which in tech, you have to be resilient to all of that. And so I do really love that, that's what he emphasized. When it comes to Martech, I think it's similar. And I think it's actually easier to do because, to your point, tech is fairly small in the sense, like the tech community is fairly small in the sense, and people are very vocal on LinkedIn or just on all these platforms, sharing their opinions for free on all of this technology. And so it's easy to find people in your own network even who are actively using a particular technology that you're considering or have used it in the past or know someone who's using it. And so having those outreach efforts, I think really does pay a lot of value to your overall, like forming your opinion and your decision. Now, that being said, I think to your point, I definitely am not the type of person who's going to let one opinion sway
Mhm.
my decision completely. I'm big on like statistical significance and making sure that, my sample is sufficient. But to your point, it does enable you and encourage you to investigate a little bit further. Like if you hear of a really negative opinion or a negative review, it does force you to get a few other sample pieces to really validate that or invalidate that.
Yeah, I've been in that position. Like one of my favorite ways to do that is jump on a Slack community in your niche. There's a lot of marketing ops Slack communities out there, and I'll search for this said tool or this like other tool that I'm looking to get backdoor references on, and I'll find someone who's posted about that tool or has asked about that tool, or maybe they were in that same evaluation process. And then I'll just like cold DM those people on the Slack community, being like, "Hey, I'm thinking of buying this tool. This is my use case. What did you love about it? What did you hate about it?" And sometimes people will be upfront and saying like, "Hey, we didn't use it for this use case at all, but these are the things that we didn't like. We ended up ditching it because of this and because of that." And so it's just like more information for you to have throughout the process that isn't coming from the salesperson or
Yeah.
the solutions architect, who is obviously incentivized to tell you that, oh yeah, that feature we don't have right now, but it's on the roadmap, it's coming super super soon. And then you chat with this person on Slack and they're like, yeah, they told us the same thing 2 years
2 years
ago
ago.
and
Yeah.
it's not there yet. So those are things that come out from backdoor references
Yeah.
there.